Counterpunch is a very Counterpunch is a like an old school leftist magazine. Okay, it's been around for quite some time. One of the articles that one of their reporting that I have relied on in the past was, I believe, I think it was during like the Osama bin Laden affair.
Jackson Hinkle, 8 years ago, was like a Bernie kid. Now he's hanging out at the Kremlin, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I made a conscious decision to be true to myself and say jalapeno poppers. Okay.
How does that happen?
I don't think his political compass is very well aligned.
Joshua Frank is the editor of Counterpunch, one of the best-known left-wing magazines in the world.
I certainly don't think he's on the left. I don't know what a mega communist actually.
That right there, by the way. It's a good magazine. Okay? Let me tell you. It's kind of shocking. It's kind of shocking to see Counterpunch on fucking CNN being displayed as also a seeing Counterpunch on CNN being displayed as a as like a reliable, sane outlet that is on the left is kind of cool to see. I never really would have thought I would be presented in that way, and I never really would have thought Counterpunch especially would be presented that way. Counterpunch even more shocking than me, to be honest. Like, where's that chatter that asks if you cared the CNN portrayed you as a lib? So let's just put it this way. Counterpunch has a lot of fucking people, like a lot of reporters. They have a lot of articles and a lot of coverage that like makes its way to TrueAnon.
Actually is, and I don't think he does.
One thing that Jackson and I can agree on, we're both American patriots in the sense that we're willing to criticize our own country. I don't disagree with everything that he says. I think there's way too much Russia phobia in this country. Obviously, the war with Russia and Ukraine is horrible, but I think this country needs to eventually work with countries like Russia and China.
You know, I think a lot of the younger generation, they have a different perspective of U.S. history of colonialization. They're further away from World War II and that narrative. They're skeptical of what the government's telling them to believe, especially when they're seeing an alternative in their social media feeds. But that's also where it can get kind of dangerous, because you do have to have some sense of media literacy.
Yeah, because it's one thing having a healthy skepticism of any media outlet, really, right? And any narrative that's being pushed. But on the other hand, what you have is people totally abandoning journalism, getting their news from somebody like Jackson Hinkle.
If you or a loved one has ever...
It's not Counterpoint, it's Counterpunch. Counterpunch is a magazine. Counterpunch is a like an old school leftist magazine. Okay? It's been around for quite some time. One of the articles that one of their reporting that I have relied on in the past was, I believe, I think it was during like the Osama bin Laden affair, where they talk about the assassination. What's the name of the guy? The guy that right before 9/11. The Afghan dude that was assassinated right before 9/11. Like I've used their investigative reporting on that. Let me see if I can find it. Man, shut the fuck up. No, it's not the blind sheik. It's not Saddam Hussein. What are you talking about? I'm talking about, I think it's Ahmad Shah Massoud. Yeah, 2 days before the 9/11 attack, Ahmad Shah Massoud was assassinated in Afghanistan. His legacy is woven with threads of both reverence and controversy, partially torn posters with the image of slain commander. Let me see if I can find it. They have a really good I think it was Counterpunch that did an investigation on Ahmad Shah Massoud and his background. Am I crazy? Yeah, where they posed as journalists and assassinated him. Anyway, it's fine. I don't think it was this article. No, not like why the world's eyes are on Afghanistan, Tajikistan border. Are you actually a liberal, or is it just for the views? Why is like the followers and created info not available? What happened?
Focused.
All right, let's
Never
just
been
finish this.
fooled by Western propaganda about Ukraine. I don't blame you.
He'll post stuff that is so infuriatingly ill-informed. So many people in his comments, in his community, just take what he's saying as the truth.
Jackson is a Russian propaganda dream, right?
Yeah. Yeah, whether he's doing it and he's on a payroll or not, they're getting a great bargain, right? I mean, if the guy was actually on the left, he would talk about the press in Russia and the crackdown on the free press. They would talk about these things, but they don't, right? And why is that? It raises some flags for me.
Or even like like you know, the invasion of Ukraine. Like that is just completely unjustifiable. There is no rhyme or reason. Like there is no leftist justification for such a thing. It's just you are deliberately invading a sovereign state. It doesn't matter. Like all of the Z pushing arguments that I have dealt with in this community in terms of like, well, what about Donbass, right? Like, what about Eastern Ukraine, where there are a lot of like, ethnic Russians or people who are being bombed by their own Ukrainian government for years and years. 14,000 people died. It's like, okay, Russia invading Ukraine killed more people. Like you didn't, like what goal did that actually, if your goal is to stop people being bombed, right? So what, is it okay if like Russia bombs them instead? Don't forget the Ukrainian neo-Nazis. I mean, this is the problem. I've talked about Ukrainian neo-Nazis quite a bit with the Azov Battalion and with other football, with other football hooligan groups that Ukrainian anarchists and Ukrainian leftists would duke it out on the streets regularly, and those groups that inevitably became a prominent fixture in the Ukrainian National Guard in the first line of defense. Okay? But that doesn't change the reality. That doesn't change the dynamic even a little bit in terms of like giving any kind of righteous cause to Russia to invade. And it's also additionally ridiculous when, you factor in all of the hyper nationalist groups that are on the hyper nationalist groups that are also on the Russian side. So it doesn't change that dynamic. You have to look at what you know, you have to look at what they're doing. You have to look at who's in the wrong. I think ultimately, regardless of Western intervention in Ukraine, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was completely unjustifiable. And that's it. And when people talk about, like, there is a couple points that I hear all the time, right? The de-Russification of Eastern Ukraine. Okay. What Russia has done has been significantly worse in Eastern Ukraine and across the board. Or when people talk about denazification, again, there is no righteous cause for this. And also you end up Nazifying the country regardless, especially when nationalists are the first line of defense in this situation. And now they're going to become even more hyper-nationalistic, something that I ironically talked about the day of the invasion. Okay. And NATO expansion is the final aspect of the argument, which is, oh, well, NATO was expanding into Russia's backyard. While I understand NATO expansion as a reasonable realpolitik fear from a regional actor, Russia's invasion of Ukraine literally calcified NATO's prominence in Western Europe and Eastern Europe. It gave an opportunity for Finland and Sweden to also join NATO. Okay? It was one of the fattest gifts that Vladimir Putin could ever give to Western contractors, to the military-industrial complex in the United States of America, to those who want to build arms in Germany, in the UK. That was a gift. We have accelerated weapons manufacturing in Western Europe dramatically since then, scaled up dramatically. While simultaneously justifying an existence for NATO. That's why I always say, look, in terms of foreign policy, if you want to do it right, okay, and I have disagreements with Chinese foreign policy as well, but like, look at the way China operates and then look at the way Russia operates. If you secure trade and make yourself an irreplaceable factor in the global marketplace, as Putin certainly had the capacity to do so, then you make it so much harder to like actively go to war with you and completely deny trade. That's it. When you get goaded into and inevitably end up advancing on a sovereign nation and lend credence to a lot of the fears that everyone in Europe has in terms of like a Russian invasion, you literally you did it. You gave all of the excuses to your enemies. That's it. They tried. Look at the Nord Stream pipeline. That is the result. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because it blew up after Russia invaded Ukraine. Don't you think that the international consequences for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline would be dramatically different if Russia was not currently fucking invading Ukraine? Like, what are you talking about? You think fucking, like, at the end of the day, you think our European allies would be like, no, that was so sick that you blew up a pipeline that was, you know, sending us gas. No, they wouldn't be fine with that. Okay? They wouldn't. That's crazy.
Hey, Jackson.
How's it going?
You're breaking up a little bit, but that's okay.
Good. Here in Moscow, Russia. Yes, I see that it is trying to reconnect the internet.
Now he's totally frozen. When I next spoke to Jackson, he was back in Russia. The Kremlin had organized to bring him to parts of Ukraine it had illegally invaded.
Are they brainwashing you?
No, I think the only people who are being brainwashed are the people paid by the military-industrial complex.
Like this right here is fucking gross, okay? Absolutely gross and completely unacceptable. It's gross when Destiny does it, when he goes to Israel and dick rides Israel. It's gross when Jackson Hinkledink goes to Russia and dick rides Russia. There is no difference, okay? That's the position I'm on. If you have a fucking issue with that, you can suck my dick, all right? That's it. Like, that's gross as fuck, dude. Imagine sitting on top of, like, occupied territories and being like, this shit is sick. I'm vlogging here. Like, get the fuck out of here. And Destiny did that shit, too. Okay? Yeah, he did. He fucking did that shit. It's disgusting. It's just... it's just incomprehensible evil shit, okay?
Complex to spout certain views.
You haven't gone kind of full Tucker Carlson yet, though. You haven't gone to a supermarket and started sniffing bread.
Oh, come on. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized.
Jackson denies taking money from the Russian government.
You're a guest, basically, of the Russian Foreign Ministry, right?
There's multiple private and public individuals that I think are supporting my efforts to see the country and you know, showing me the truth about Russia. I pay for my travels. I pay for my hotel expenses.
Every time I think maybe this guy is mature, you tweet something stupid. You did a poll. You are facing a death sentence before a judge, but the judge is on her period. Are you okay with this? Like, are you just a straight up sexist? I just don't understand. What's the deal with this sort of stuff?
Well, of course, you know, you have to introduce comedy into the dark times. But
Jackson and his followers have a warped view of women and of the world.
So I was dating all these women who were LARPing as men, who want power for themselves, who want money, who want to be like men, unlike a traditional woman, and they all failed. Game theory suggests that
you are getting escorted around Russian-occupied Ukraine because you do justify it and say it's good. Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's getting paid by somebody, okay? Because these guys, I never know. Not this guy. This guy is what you see is what you get. It's kind of a sad story. But like with Jackson Hinkledink, it's like somebody's got to be paying him. The fuck? How's he making the money? You know? He's just traveling around the world. I mean, the motherfucker went to Venezuela, dog. Come on. Like, if I wanted to go to Venezuela, okay, if I wanted to go to Venezuela after the election, okay, I would first get clapped by the Venezuelan government, okay, and then I would get clapped by the American government, okay? I get double clapped. Like, how the fuck do you pull that off, dude? Come on. Come on. Like, or even Russia, which is, again,
the problem is not me.
yeah, they don't even let Sean Penn do that anymore, dude. Yeah, exactly. Last guy that used to do that was Sean Penn. To be fair, DSA does a trip every few years. No, I'm talking about when they did it. And I mean, you can go to Cuba and stuff too with, like, depending on which coalition you're going with. Like, I almost did in August. But I was at the DNC at the time instead. Me and Lolo were gonna go to Cuba. Yeah, bro, not just Russia, but occupied territory in Ukraine. Yeah, that's like extra crazy, bro. You didn't even just go to Moscow. Even Tucker didn't go to occupied territories in Ukraine. Okay? Like, that is weird, okay?
Theory, like men, unlike a traditional woman, and they all failed.